This is the GeoKnife Noxiz, and in the interest of full disclosure, they did send this to me to review, but this is not an advertisement. Today we're going to be getting to the bottom of just exactly what this is, what it costs, and ultimately, what are my thoughts? Because at the end of the day, I'm not going to sit here and parade around a spec sheet, which you can go on your own and find on their website, or in fact, in my description. So I have went ahead and validated that spec sheet is correct, because I know that some people are out there going to say, well, Rollshambo, you should still, measure it and do all the things because they could be misleading us. And it's true, not all manufacturer or retail websites get the spec sheet right. In this case, I've measured it, I've weighed it. I can tell you that the spec sheet in the description is in fact correct. This is the GeoKnife Noxiz, and quite simply, it's another crossbar style knife from GeoKnife. Here's the deal. I see your comments when you say, I wish it was a frame lock. I wish it was a liner lock. Why couldn't they make top liner locks like Vosteed or, insert X company here? At this point in time, there have been so many iterations of every single knife lock out there that I'm just kind of over it, right? Like for some people, this is going to be the perfect knife lock. And for some people, they're just going to say, no, not for me, not another crossbar style lock. But it's neither here nor there, because there's amazing knives made every day in every single country in the world with every different type of knife lock there is, and nothing is unique anymore as far as the locking mechanisms. I wanted to talk about this knife because there's definitely some highlights that I really like, but there's also some lowlights with this knife that I really don't. And I think that that's very important to talk about. It's going to have all of the things that you come to expect out of a knife that costs $259 if you get it from GeoKnife. Now, you can, of course, get this from a different retailer at a lower price. In fact, I just looked on White Mountain Knives, and White Mountain Knives is selling this for $200, and I believe you can also use a content creator discount code like mine, which is RSB10, so you could take another $20 off and get this for $180. I like the ergos. Ergos in hand feel solid. They feel good. They're not the most hand-meltingly good ergos that I've ever felt in my life, at least not for my hands. My hands are the average size hands for an average size man here in the United States, but they're decent. There's no immediate hot spots that I can feel, and I think that that's important. Another highlight is the fact that we get a nice aesthetic here on the pocket clip with no visible screws on the clip. It's a blind screwed pocket clip, which is cool. 3D milled titanium, of course. And I really like this blade shape. What would you call this? I mean, I would think I would probably call it something like a snub-nosed harpoon sheep's cleaver. That's about it. It also has multiple deployments in the form of a double-sided thumb stud that works rather well. You get some good leverage off there. And a fuller, which is 100% flickable. It's a very flickable fuller. The flickable fuller is in full effect, and it shows. The design is from a designer called Fabster Run, and Fabster Run is a content creator of sorts who also does some design on the sides. This is not, in fact, his first knife design. I believe he's also done some work with Tenable and Concept, but he's captured a few things that we all really like. Another highlight is full T8 hardware all the way around, T8 pivot, T8 body screws. That's great. I also really like this texturing on the handle scales. I'm so glad that they didn't leave this as a plain blank canvas, because for one, those plain blank canvases, while they do have a certain aesthetic appeal to some people, another highlight, and yes, for me this is a highlight, is its use of phosphor bronze washers. Man, I love phosphor bronze washers because they give you a lot of reliability. You don't have to worry about grit or dirt or anything getting inside that pivot action, which is important, especially when you have a crossbar style lock like this and part of that mechanism is open. In this case, you don't really have to worry about it because phosphor bronze washers, they're kind of self-lubricating over time as those washers polish themselves out. One of the things that I also really like about GeoKnife is that their M390 is cryo and vacuum treated. It's one of those things that lead me to believe that this is in fact OEM'd by Kubi, but I can't confirm it. Also, nobody's denying it, so for all intents and purposes, I'm just going to assume that Kubi is the OEM on this, and I think that I'm not the only one in that boat. So you can depend on the heat treat, you can depend on the designer to care about things, but there's going to be some things about this knife that many people do not like. And I'm going to talk about the first one. The first one is going to be the label on the pocket clip. Now, I understand GeoKnife is still relatively new to the knife community, but I'm just going to throw this out there. I don't know of anyone that says, you know what? I want the knife logo on the pocket clip. I think that that's the best way to highlight a pocket clip design is by putting some branding on there. We don't have a whole lot of branding on the blade, and that's fine. You know, I would have preferred to have had it on the blade, kind of like how we have the maker's mark right there. But no, we have it on the pocket clip. In my opinion, the best place to put a logo is going to be on a single-sided captive pivot. They should have put it on the pivot. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Another thing that I'm not a huge fan of is the fact that this is not, in fact, a lefty-friendly knife, and that is a huge miss. And I'm going to say why, because in all fairness, left-handed people do not make up the majority of people by any stretch. I understand that. Left-handed people are a small minority group. However, they're a minority group that exists in the knife and EDC community, just like everywhere else in the world. And they tend to gravitate towards knives that are ambidextrous. Why? Because not a lot of companies make very many left-handed options. And crossbar style knives are typically going to be one of those perfect ambidextrous style of knives out there, because you don't have to worry about flicking a bar or moving a bar over to one side or the other. No, you pull down with both fingers and that's how you release the lock. And so it makes for a perfect platform to kind of welcome in the lefties, bring them home, you know, come on in lefties. Crossbar style knives are lefty friendly, but not this one, because unlike in prior GeoKnife models, this one does not in fact have a spot for the pocket clip, which is a crying shame. More people will say, well, why would you destroy such a beautiful front fascia on that handle scale by making it lefty accessible for the small percentage of people who are left-handed? And to that, I would answer, I mean, they already did. They already did. Like, for example, this is a GeoKnife ethereal cutter, and I'm going to get back to this knife, but do you see something here? Yes, there's a screw right there, but they also did exact milling on a filler tab, so you don't really lose anything on the aesthetics to do that. So that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me that they would in fact not include a filler tab so that you could switch the pocket clip around. I mean, the pocket clip wouldn't be a perfect fit on the other side because it kind of has this almost, you know, angled tip right there, but they could have cut that, made it more of a, you know, rounded tip, and then they could have also included a filler tab so that you could switch to the other side, and endorsed an entire misunderstood section of the knife community, which is the left-handed user. In my opinion, that is a miss because it is specifically a crossbar style lock. So what do? Well, we take the good, we take the bad, and we come up with our final answer of, does this knife get the thumbs up? And ultimately for me, yeah, I'll give it a thumbs up, and I'll give it a thumbs up for two reasons. While GeoKnife has recently raised their retail prices on their knives on their website, their retail partners really have not. Again, you can go on White Mountain Knives right now and buy this with your content creator discount code of choice. Mine is RSB10. And when you do that and you go to White Mountain Knives, you can pick up the Noxiz for $180. And for $180, you get a knife that is well made. It's not perfect, like I mentioned. It has billboarding in the wrong spot. It lacks a backspacer. It's not lefty friendly. But it's a knife that has really good cutting geometry. Look at that. It's very thin behind the edge. It's going to have multiple deployment options for those of you who like to endlessly fidget with your knives and anger your domestic partners. But aside from that, $180 for this, I believe, is very fair, especially considering that they do a vacuum and cryo heat treat on the blade, especially considering that there's not a ton of other knives out there with a blade shape that looks exactly like this. In fact, I'd say as far as knives that look exactly like this, I don't know of any. There's a few that you could say look similar-esque. I know that someone's going to pipe into the comment section and say, that kind of looks like a Clydesdale. Shout out to New Breed EDC. I don't think that this looks like a Clydesdale. For the couple people who were about to comment that, just know that, you know, I disagree. I think that this is a knife that's going to be a good EDC for a lot of people because it's reliable in the right areas. Again, I do think that it's a bummer that it's not lefty friendly. No filler tab there. I feel like that could have been an easy fix on their part, but it's not. Yes, it's a crossbar style lock, so many people also might be wondering, well, is it adjustable as far as the lock bar tension is concerned? It absolutely is. You can 100% open this bad boy up and change the tension by moving the Omega springs into one of those little dots. So you can do that if you want. A lot of people are afraid of doing that on a crossbar style lock because they've heard and they've seen all of the horror stories of people spending hours trying to put these things back together. And that brings me to my one last final thing. I believe that GeoKnife needs to evolve. They need to evolve, and they need to evolve now because there's some improvements they can make on their regular everyday design language that I think could make a big difference. First thing, they need to make sure that all of their knives are lefty friendly. Got it. Second thing is, while I typically like single-sided captive pivots, I'm not a huge fan of it on a crossbar style knife because these days you can adjust the tension on all of the crossbar style knives out there, right? Well, when you have a single-sided captive pivot, that means that you have to basically take this whole thing apart to be able to do that because it's not a three-piece pivot. So not just to GeoKnife, but to all the crossbar style knife makers out there, manufacturers out there, give us a three-piece pivot because it allows us to take one scale off at a time. So imagine this world. On this side, it's easy. You pop the pivot, you pop the body screws, the scale comes off, you adjust the Omega spring on the liner. Now you put the scale back on, you flip to the other side. If this was a three-piece pivot design that was not single-sided, you could then take off just this side and just this scale and adjust that lock bar tension, no problem. They didn't do that, which means that instead you have to take this knife fully apart. And again, many people have horror stories of not being able to put these back together. The best way to do it is to pop out the full pivot and then use a placeholder. Now, for me, I just use this. This is a random bolt. I don't remember where this came from or what this goes to. I just know that it typically fits into a lot of pivot holes on crossbar style knives. You can use anything as a placeholder. The whole point is just use something that fits in the pivot hole that holds that knife together after you take this out, because once you take this out, the whole thing's going to want to fall apart. But if you have something in there holding it together like this, you can go in, you can change the tension on the lock bar, you can put it back on and pop that pivot back in, and it's not that hard. It's not that hard. Is it a little frustrating that we have to do that in a day and age where, you know, we used to have to beg for a single-sided captive pivot, and now everything's a crossbar style lock, and I'm over here saying, you know, no single-sided captive pivot. The irony is not lost on me. Is it an enjoyable knife? Is it a fidgety knife? Yes. Is it designed well? Yes. There are a few things that I would improve, but considering that you can go on certain retailers and get this between 180 to 200 bucks, I would say that for the money, they are still doing an exceptional job of bringing some really great value. But those are my thoughts on the brand new GeoKnife Noxiz. We got the good, we got the bad, we put it together, and what do we get? Let me know in the comment section down below. Is this one that interests you? Are you intrigued by this brand new offering, or is it going to be a pass for you? Let's have that conversation in the comment section down below, guys. Let me know what you think about this style of knife review and if I should continue to do that. If you want to watch some more awesome knife and EDC content, feel free to click on one of the videos that pops up next.